Manipur, often called the Jeweled Land, is a place where nature and culture have long danced together in harmony. Its rolling green hills stretch as far as the eye can see, cradling villages that have thrived for centuries. Loktak Lake, shimmering under the sun, is the heart of Manipur, its floating phumdis and tranquil waters a symbol of resilience and beauty. The people here are known for their vibrant festivals, their music, and their deep-rooted traditions that celebrate life and togetherness. But today this land is weeping. The air is heavy with sorrow, and the once bustling streets now echo with silence and uncertainty. The harmony that once defined Manipur has been shattered by brutal conflict. Where laughter and music once filled the air, now there are only the sounds of unrest and fear. Neighbors who once celebrated together, sharing meals and stories, now face each other with suspicion and fear. The bonds of trust, built over generations, have been torn apart almost overnight. This is not just a political crisis, it's a deeply personal human tragedy. Every tear shed here tells a story of loss, of homes destroyed, of families separated, of dreams put on hold. Since May 2023, ethnic violence between the Meitei majority and Kuki-Zo tribes has torn the state apart. The violence has left thousands displaced, and entire communities living in fear, unsure of what tomorrow will bring. Invisible walls of pain and betrayal now divide communities that once stood together. Physical barriers and emotional wounds have created a chasm that seems impossible to bridge. To truly understand Manipur's sorrow, we must listen to its people, hear their stories, their fears, and their hopes. We must look beyond the headlines and statistics, and see the human faces behind the conflict. There are no simple villains or heroes here, only communities gripped by fear, fighting for dignity, security, and the right to live in peace. Each person is caught in a struggle not of their own making, longing for safety and understanding. The tears of Manipur are a call to all of us, to understand, to listen, and not to look away. In their pain, there is a plea for compassion, for unity, and for hope that one day, the land of jewels will shine bright again. Every great fire starts with a single spark. Sometimes that spark is so small, it's almost invisible, just a flicker of hope or a moment of fear. But in the right conditions, it can ignite something much larger, something that changes the course of lives and history. In Manipur, that spark was a court order suggesting the Meitei community be considered for scheduled tribe status. What seemed like a legal technicality soon became the center of a storm, drawing in communities, leaders, and families across the state. For the Meiteis, the court's suggestion represented a chance to secure long-sought rights and protections, access to land, education, and government jobs. But for Manipur's tribal communities, it felt like a threat to their very existence, a move that could erode their hard-won protections and open their ancestral lands to outsiders. On May 3rd, 2023, thousands took to the streets in the Tribal Solidarity March, voicing their fears and frustrations. The protest was meant to be peaceful, a show of unity and resistance against the court's recommendation. But what began as a peaceful demonstration quickly spiraled out of control. Tensions boiled over, and soon, violence erupted. Homes, businesses, and even places of worship were attacked, leaving entire neighborhoods in ruins and families displaced overnight. The state, once delicately balanced between its many communities, was suddenly engulfed in flames, both literal and metaphorical. The air was thick with smoke, fear, and uncertainty. The violence spread rapidly, fueled by rumor and rage. Social media became a battleground, amplifying anger and misinformation, making it nearly impossible to separate fact from fiction as panic swept through towns and villages. The demand for scheduled tribe status was only the matchstick. The real fuel was decades of simmering tension, mistrust, and unresolved disputes over identity, land, and belonging. Old wounds were reopened, and history's shadows loomed large over the present. The protest didn't create the conflict. It simply exposed the deep, unresolved grievances that had been festering beneath the surface for years. The lines between communities, once blurred, became stark and unyielding. The fire lit that day still smolders in Manipur's memory, a painful reminder of how quickly peace can be lost, and how fragile the bonds of trust and coexistence truly are. The aftermath lingers, urging us to remember, reflect, and seek a path toward healing. To understand Manipur's conflict, we must look to its deep historical and geographical divides. The Imphal Valley, home to the Hindu Meiteis, has long held political and economic power. The surrounding hills, inhabited by Kuki-Zo and Naga tribes, are culturally and historically distinct. British colonial rule and post-independence laws reinforced these divisions, protecting tribal lands from non-tribal ownership. Métis feel confined to the valley, while tribals see these laws as vital shields. Political power remains concentrated in the valley, fueling tribal grievances of neglect and marginalization. The result? Two worlds within one state, each with its own narrative of injustice. These divisions have hardened over time, making compromise elusive. The current violence is an eruption of long-suppressed frustrations. Manipor's wounds are centuries in the making. At the heart of Manipor's conflict is a struggle over land and identity. Métis, squeezed into the valley, feel denied their rights as original inhabitants. Fears of demographic change and migration from Myanmar drive their demand for ST status. For them, it's about survival and cultural protection. Kuki-Zo and other tribes see the hills as ancestral land, protected for a reason. They view Métis demands as a threat to their existence and culture. Each side's aspirations are the other's existential fear. Mutual suspicion has poisoned relations, making compromise seem impossible. The deadlock is tragic and deeply personal. In Manipur, misinformation spreads as fast as violence. Social media has become a battleground, amplifying fake news and hateful narratives. Métis groups accuse Kuki-Zo communities of narco-terrorism, fueling fear and justifying violence. Kuki-Zo counter with stories of Métis militias and state-backed atrocities. Each side lives in a digital echo chamber, reinforcing their worst fears. Truth is lost, empathy vanishes, and reconciliation becomes nearly impossible. Breaking these echo chambers is one of the greatest challenges to peace. Behind the headlines, beyond the numbers and breaking news, lie stories of immense human suffering. Stories that rarely make it to the front page, but define the reality of life in Manipur today. These are stories of ordinary people whose lives have been upended overnight, whose dreams have been shattered by violence and fear. Over 200 people have been killed, thousands of homes reduced to ashes, and more than 60,000 men, women, and children forced to flee, leaving behind everything they once called their own. The scale of devastation is staggering, and the wounds run deep. Ibemcha, a Métis woman, once celebrated festivals and shared meals with her Kuki-Zo neighbors. Today, she sits in a crowded relief camp, her trust in her community shattered, her memories now tinged with loss. She remembers the laughter of children playing together, the warmth of shared traditions, now replaced by uncertainty and fear. Thangboy, a Kuki-Zo pastor, watched his village burn to the ground. His church, once a place of hope and unity, now stands in ruins. Forced to flee with nothing but the clothes on his back, he is accused of being an outsider in the land where his ancestors lived for generations. The sense of belonging he once felt has been replaced by fear and suspicion. These stories reveal the true cost of conflict, not just in numbers, but in lost homes, broken trust, and stolen futures. Families return to the ruins of their houses, searching for remnants of their past, while children wander through debris, their innocence lost to the violence around them. The impact ripples through every aspect of life. Students' education is disrupted as schools become shelters. Farmers can't reach their fields to plant or harvest, and daily wage earners lose the only means they have to support their families. The rhythm of daily life is broken, replaced by a constant struggle for survival. The state is now physically and emotionally segregated, divided by buffer zones and armed checkpoints. Roads that once connected communities are now lined with barbed wire and guarded by soldiers, a constant reminder of the deep divisions that have taken hold. Métis can no longer safely enter the hills, while Kuki-Zo people are barred from Imphal. The freedom to move, to visit friends and family, to live without fear, has been lost. Everyday journeys have become dangerous, and the sense of home has been replaced by boundaries and suspicion. The social fabric is torn apart. Neighbors who once shared meals and festivals now avoid each other. Friends have become strangers, and communities that once stood together are now divided by mistrust and pain. The bonds that held people together have been frayed, perhaps beyond repair. The pain is not just in the lives lost, but in the life stolen from the living. Grief lingers in every corner, in the tears of an old woman in a relief camp, in the silence of a boy sitting alone among ruins, in the mourning of families who have lost everything. The scars of this conflict will last for generations. Children growing up in camps will carry memories of fear and loss. Elders will remember a time when peace was possible, and families will struggle to rebuild what was taken from them. Manipur's tragedy is not just a headline. It is written in the faces and stories of its people, in the resilience they show every day, and in the hope that one day their divided state might heal. Manipur's conflict is shaped by its border with Myanmar. The Free Movement regime once fostered close ties, but the 2021 Myanmar coup sent thousands of refugees, mainly Chin, related to Kuki-Zo, into Manipur. Meiteis fear this influx is changing demographics and straining resources. The narrative of illegal immigration blurs lines between citizens and refugees, fueling suspicion. The Indian government's move to fence the border and end free movement is welcomed by some, but divides families and communities. Weapons and drugs now flow across the border, escalating violence. Myanmar's turmoil casts a long shadow over Manipur's fragile peace. Amid the darkness, glimmers of hope remain. Women's groups like the Mira Paibis and Kuki-Zo organizations are calling for peace, demanding dialogue and an end to bloodshed. Inter-community dialogues, though difficult, are beginning to bridge divides. Personal acts of courage, families sheltering neighbors from the other community, prove coexistence isn't lost. These small, brave actions are seeds of peace. They remind us that identity can be a bridge, not just a wall. The voices of peacemakers must be amplified. Healing begins with listening and empathy. Manipur's future depends on these acts of solidarity. The path to peace in Manipur is long and difficult. Healing requires more than politics. It needs empathy and a willingness to listen. We must resist simple narratives and seek out credible information. Supporting independent journalism and fact-checking is vital. Lasting peace demands addressing land rights, fair representation, and balanced development. The central government must act as an impartial mediator. Ultimately, reconciliation begins in the hearts of Manipur's people. Let us choose understanding, dialogue, and hope over division and despair.